àgbèlò sí tómi pé lápèpá o. ẹ wo ènìyàn ẹ ò ráyè lóde náà. ènìyàn yẹ ṣe ọwọ́ rẹ̀ wò ènìyàn ọmọ ènìyàn ẹ ò ráyè lóde náà. àṣègbè má ṣègbè mọ́ àṣebàjẹ́ ẹyẹ sòtítọ́ o ẹni dalẹ̀ abalẹ̀ lọ o ẹwẹ́ nìyàn ẹwẹ́ nìyàn ẹ ò ráyè lóde náà.
mo kí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá níbikíbi tẹ́ ẹ tó ti láǹfààní láti máa wò mí torí tá a bá wọnú ilé kan ìyáálé ilé là kọ́kọ́ kí ẹlẹ́gbẹ̀rin ìgbákọ Yorùbá sì lọ wọ́n bọ̀ wọ́n ní ẹni tí ò kíni kú lé ó pàdánù káàbọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ẹ kú ilé là wí bàbá dénú ilé ewúrẹ́ tí ọ̀kágò wọn a máa di mímú so àgùntàn tó wọlé tí ọ̀kágò wọn a máa di àmúpaléyá ìran ajá tí ó wọlé tí ọ̀kágò wọn dẹrùn ògún lágbára Ọlọ́run akandọ̀rọ̀ Awíkòǹkò náà ló kọ́ mi kò yí padà Àjàó Àrò ni mi Awíkòǹkò aṣọ lójú ọlọ́rọ̀ bọ́lọ́rọ̀ bá gbọ́ kí n bàbá ńlá bàbá ọlọ́rọ̀ ó ṣe pápápá ni mo fẹ́ ṣe gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá ni mo bá ní gbólóhùn kékeré lórí èèyàn kan náà ló sì gbé mi wá that is I call him a forgotten hero Adeyinka grandson lára àṣẹlẹ̀ tó ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Adeyinka grandson ó jẹ́ kí n mọ̀ wípé ẹnu Yorùbá ọ̀gbọ́mọjẹ rí ìran Yorùbá kì í dẹ̀ sí ìran téèyàn máa ń kú fún bọ́ ọ bá kú fún Yorùbá ó kú dunra ẹ̀ ó kú dun mọ̀lẹ́bí ẹ̀ ìdí ni pé Yorùbá kì í yàgò fẹ́lẹ́sìn àná ní tíran Yorùbá bá ń jẹ lọ́wọ́ wọn mọ̀ use and dump lọ wọn ó dump ẹsẹ̀gbẹ́ kan àwọn ni wọ́n bá tiẹ̀ jẹ́ o àwọn náà ni ọkọ̀ máa fi bú ọ àwọn ni ó sọ ọ́ da láṣejù àwọn ni ó kọ́kọ́ máa pè ọ́ lálàṣejù àwọn ni wọ́n sọ ọ́ jàgídíjàgan àwọn náà ni ó máa kọ́kọ́ pè ọ́ lóní jàgídíjàgan so mo ti study Yorùbá dáadáa mo ti wá rí i pé ìwọ̀nba téèyàn bá lè ṣe ní kéèyàn ó ṣe fún Yorùbá ìran Yorùbá kì í ṣe ìran téèyàn máa ń kú fún because láyé àtijọ́ là máa ń pé jàfójo ní kinní kan kò sí jàfójo mọ́ jàfúnra ẹ ló kù lóòótọ́ nítorí akọ́bẹ̀jẹ káfọ́kòkò ọbẹ̀ sọnù but Yorùbá doesn't appreciate their heroes àákò kan péré ni Yorùbá máa appreciate èèyàn nígbà tẹ́niyẹn bá ti kú ìyẹn jẹ́ ọmọdé ìyẹn jẹ́ àgbàlagbà kò túmọ̀ sí pé èèyàn ní part nínú ìrìnàjò Yorùbá ọ̀pọ̀ nu wa ló ti gbé lẹ̀ because a rí i pé òsàbọ̀ ọ̀bá lè gbè mí ṣe mí bó ṣe dá mi bó ṣe bá mi ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn ló ti la iná kọjá lórí ìjàngbara Yorùbá lórí ìjà fún Yorùbá lórí ìfẹ́ ànídọ́kàn tí wọ́n ní sí Yorùbá. No one can love Yorùbá nation, Yorùbá people, Yorùbá region, Yorùbá tribe than Adeyinka grandson, a brother. But ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ kan ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Adeyinka grandson lọ́dún bíi mélòó kan sẹ́yìn agbe bíi kọ́ máa lábẹ́ ẹ̀ lọ ṣùgbọ́n lọ́hùn fún wa ṣe débi pé wọ́n parọ́ mọ́ wọ́n dìtẹ̀ mọ́ wọ́n rán lẹ́wọ̀n ní United Kingdom so lọ́jọ́ bíi mélòó kan sẹ́yìn lẹ́nìkan wá send message sí mi pé adúpẹ́ o wọ́n ti release Adeyinka grandson mo send message sí nọ́mbà ẹ̀ mi ò rí response mo rò pé kò tí ì tó sọ̀rọ̀ lé lórí àfi tèmi gangan bá rí èèyàn tí mo lè confam àwọn tí mo dẹ̀ béèrè lọ́wọ́ wọn ò tí ì rí confam ẹnìkan tiẹ̀ ọjọ́ kẹta ló tó dá mi lóhùn pé ó rí message mi not until yesterday morning tí Adeyinka grandson fúnra lára ẹ̀ tó send message sí mi lórí WhatsApp to welcome my brother. So ó jẹ́ kó yé mi pé òjòjò ń ṣògùn ara ògùn ò le, ara ẹ̀ ò yá, because òkèlè gbígbẹ́ tó ń tì tẹ́ lọ́rùn tó ń ti fọkànbalẹ̀ ó sàn ju wàhálà ìdààmú pákáleke fùrọ̀ǹdán pẹ̀lú ẹran dídé àti ẹyin àti gbogbo nǹkan mùdùmùdùn lélẹ̀ tó túmọ̀ sí sùn kìí sínú ilé ara ẹ̀, ibi tó wà kìí sínú ilé ara ẹ̀ níbi ọdún méjì tí ó bá lé. So Adeyinka grandson ló wá ṣàlàyé ìrírí ẹ̀. Mo wá wò wípé at least bí wọn ò ní appreciate ẹ̀, it has to be on record. Mo ti sọ́rí wípé nínú àwa tá a lá ń sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá lórí Adeyinka grandson is an intelligent fellow, very very intelligent indeed. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not. Èèyàn lè kórìíra èèyàn bọ̀ kéèyàn mọ̀ wípé ntí ẹni ń ṣe ọmọ ntẹ́ni ń ṣe ọ̀tọ̀nà. Lóòótọ́ gbogbo ala ní personal issue, personal problem, reality ni, kò sẹ́ni tó máa dé ọ̀dọ̀ rẹ̀ tó máa bí tí ò ní nǹkan kan. Ṣùgbọ́n problem ẹ̀yin èèyàn ni pé ẹ máa ń fọkàn sí pé àwọn tí wọ́n ń pè ní public figure tàbí celebrity, they shouldn't have any problem, they shouldn't have any issue, because ẹ ti sọ wọ́n dànjànú pé wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ la nǹkan tí èèyàn gidi ńlá kọjá. Kí ni different? Being celebrity ò change life èèyàn, ó change àwọn nǹkan kan, kò change àwọn nǹkan kan. Ẹ jẹ́ á gbà pé ẹlẹ́ran ara jọ ni gbogbo wa. Lórí gbogbo tí wọ́n parọ́ máa Adeyinka grandson lé lórí, kì í ṣe lórí àtijẹ tàbá ti mọ ẹ̀, orí ọ̀rọ̀ ìran Yorùbá ni, orí bí Yorùbá ò ṣe bọ́kù olóko ẹrú l'Adeyinka grandson lọ sẹ́wọ̀n sí. Gbàgbé wípé bóyá ìyàwó ẹ̀ àbí nǹkan kan, gbogbo ẹ̀ lórí wọnú ara wọn, because ó lè lé ní sílẹ̀ kò fún títa. Má bọ̀ yín with too much talk. Ilé màá kà mo fẹ́ kó wà on record torí òní kan torí ọ̀la ni, because oríṣiríṣi àwọn èèyàn ni yóò máa sọ̀rọ̀ jẹnu wọn yà káàkiri. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ máa sọ pé ntọ́jẹ ló yó, wọ́n sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ sẹ́mi náà rí. Ẹwọ ẹ má wọ́ọ̀rì, ṣé wọ́n arrest Awíkonko àbí ẹ má wọ́ọ̀rì, ntọ́jẹ ló yó jàre. Ẹlòmíà lọ báyàn ṣe business ní ọ̀sánwó fún, ẹlòmíà lọ jẹyàn lówó, oríṣiríṣi nǹkan náà máa ń papọ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì rí ẹni tí ọ̀gbọ́ tẹnu ẹ̀gà nípa yòókù ń pàtó. So àpilẹ̀kọ ọ̀hún ló pè ní My Unfair Imprisonment, a Stain on the English Judiciary by Adeyinka grandson, president of the YYF and former British political prisoner. 1. An assault on free speech. 1. Having been wrongly convicted in the Crown Court at Southwark in London on November 30, 2021 and sentenced on March 31, 2022 to a total of 4 years and 6 months imprisonment on the false charges of racially aggravated public order offence, has served the sentence for 6 counts offences of publishing and distributing materials on social media platforms, namely 4 YouTube videos and 2 Facebook posts as threatening, abusive, revolting, or intending to stir up racial hatred against the Ibodia platforms, namely 4 YouTube's video and 2 Facebook posts as threatening, abuse, revolting, or intending to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria, contrary to Section 21(1) and Section 19(1) of the Public Order Act 1986 of the United Kingdom. 1-2. I am innocent of these offences, and when I was wrongly convicted in collusion between the judge, prosecutor, and my lawyers, The Crown Prosecution Service in London did not produce in the court the Igbo and Fulani people who were the alleged victims of my political activism on social media. The victims' impact statements or the disclosure of documents requested by the defense from the Metropolitan Police Service in London. In addition, I was not permitted by the judge to use my witnesses or documents that I had available, or to mention to the jury the involvement of motives of my ex-wife for reporting my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offences over the custody matter of our children. All this made my conviction unsafe, an assault on free speech, and a stain on the English judiciary. For these reasons, I was a British political prisoner, and my conviction was malicious. I am therefore asking for permission to appeal against the conviction to the Court of Appeal. 1-3. For 2 years, 3 months, and 10 days, I was detained in prison by the pre-British state because of my political views that were critical of the Igbo and the Fulani immigrants in Nigeria, whom I have accused on social media of being the proxies of the English establishment in the suppression and subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria. 1-4. In Nigeria, the Yoruba region accounted for more than 25% of the total population, 49% of the total national income, and 80% of the country's total GDP, and has the highest population in Nigeria, as well as being the economic backbone of the country, but poor, underdeveloped, because the English establishment controlled its political economy through its process. The Fulani immigrants in Nigeria who were in charge of the presidency of the country from 1960 to 2023, through which they control the Yoruba economic assets, including the mineral and natural resources, money and capital markets, stock exchange, taxation, media, schools and curriculum, judiciary, waterways, seaports, airports, land borders, public services, probation and prison services, and the legitimate use of violence, including the military, police, civil defense, and the security services in Yoruba land, whilst their Igbo allies control the commercial tradings, real estate, and pharmaceutical industry in Yoruba land. 1-5. I hold the English, Igbo, and Fulani immigrants in Nigeria responsible for having taken over Yoruba land from the Yoruba people and draining its sweat and resources to fund the economic growth and development in England, Igbo land, and Hausa land, while causing poverty, unemployment, and underdevelopment in Yoruba land. These three nations, England, Igbo land, and Hausa land, under the control of the Fulani immigrants in Nigeria, are the eternal enemies of Yoruba nation, who suspended the parliamentary system of government in Nigeria and foisted on the Yoruba the unitary presidential system of government, which was designed to control the Yoruba's economic assets. 2. Circumstances of my arrest. 2-1. The British government for far too long has always criminalized non-English people fighting against its oppression and subjugation as terrorists. They did this to members of the African National Congress ANC in the 60s and the Irish Republican Army IRA in the 80s for fighting against the English tyrannical rules in South Africa and Northern Ireland respectively. 2-2 in 2017. They threatened my life through the English domestic and external intelligence agencies, the M15, MI5 and MI6 respectively, because of my political activism on social media that was critical of the complicity of the British government in the political situation in Nigeria, following which I made an application to the family court for permission to leave England and return to Yoruba land with my children. But in May 2018, used by the family court because my ex-wife was against the relocation risk of our lives, liberty and physical safety in England from MI5 and MI6. 2-3. In February 2019, I received death threats to my life and those of my children's lives over my political activism on social media. The threats were reported to the Metropolitan Police Service in London, who did not investigate the criminal report because the threats were made from a withheld telephone number, which the police claimed that the caller could not be traced. I considered the refusal of the Metropolitan Police Service to investigate the threats as discriminatory and made an application to the High Court of the Family Division for permission to leave England with my son and return to Yoruba land. The application was refused by the High Court because my ex-wife did not agree for our 2 children to be separated. For this reason, I remained in England to safeguard and protect the interest and the welfare of my children and continue to be involved in their lives. 2-4. However, in March 2019, I took my ex-wife to the Special Educational Needs Tribunal and the Family Court for the custody of our children, having found out that she has registered our son as a disabled child, placed him at a school for the disabled, and claiming disability benefits on him without any discussion with me, when his only problem was a speech delay and he was not in fact disabled. I also found out that she had used my children's British passports to support the application of her boyfriend to obtain a resident permit to stay in the United Kingdom, which had affected the renewal of my resident permit as the biological father of 2 Yoruba British citizen children. 2-5. To stop my application for the custody of our children required by the Special Educational Needs Tribunal for our son's education, health and social care assessment to be carried out before he could continue to attend the school for the disabled. My ex-wife was concerned about losing the custody of our children, and she was being paid on our son as disability benefits. She then reported my political activism on social media as terrorism and racial hatred offences to the Welsh-speaking South Wales Police in Cardiff. The South Wales Police investigated the allegation and took no further action on the matter. However, she was unhappy about the outcome of the South Wales Police investigation and reported the allegation to the English-speaking Metropolitan Police Service in London. The Metropolitan Police Service in London, with no jurisdiction over the matter, as my ex-wife wasn't living in London at the time of allegations against me, took on the case because of my vocal and active opposition to the British government's complicity in the political situation in Nigeria. 2-6. On August 6, 2019, as the leader of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF, I was criminalized as a terrorist by the English Metropolitan Police Service in London, who arrested me for terrorism and racial hatred offences over my political activism on social media, maliciously reported to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offences by my ex-wife because of the custody matter of our children. 2-7. The British government, however, is the real terrorist and racist over its slavery and colonization of the Yoruba country between 1851 and 1951, which caused the extermination of 20 million Yoruba people for worse than the 5 million Jewish people murdered by the Germans between 1940 and 1945. 2-8. When the English first arrived in Lagos, Yoruba land in 1851, through conquest and the imposition of colonial rule and political domination on the Yoruba people, made possible by violence, they came in hordes, shooting and killing people. They burned down farms and houses. Above all, that everywhere, smoke filled the horizon, and fear and panic seeks every man and woman and child in Yoruba land, leading untimely to the extermination of 5,000 Yoruba people out of the 22,000 inhabitants living in Lagos, Yoruba land, and seized the city from the Yoruba and thus catalyzed widespread resistance. 2-9. The resistance led to an uprising in 1855 after the Yoruba had rejected the free slaves from England who were repatriated to Yoruba land but were not originally of Yoruba descent. During this uprising, the English murdered thousands of Yoruba people. 210. Similarly, in 1892, there was a dispute between the Yoruba and English over the use of the waterways in Lagos. The English enlisted the support of the Fulani and other black people, especially from Ghana and Sierra Leone, and attacked the Ijebu and Remo tribes of the Yoruba country, who had the support of the other Yoruba tribes and the people of Brazil and Portugal. In the war that ensued, millions of Yoruba people were paying by the English over the control of the port of Lagos in Yoruba country. 211. The English, having created an armed force in Yoruba land, the West African Frontier Force, made up of the non-Yoruba people and mostly Fulani people from Senegal and Gambia, attacked the Oyo tribe of the Yoruba nation in Ilorin in 1901 and 1902 respectively, and removed the true ruler of the city, Alhaji Inakoju Alanamu, a Yoruba citizen, to Jeba, and replaced him with a Fulani immigrant in Ilorin as the emir of the city, who had helped the English to buy thousands of the Yoruba in Ilorin. 212. The British government, in an act of terror, attacked the Yoruba nation 5 times between 1851 and 1951, exterminated 20 million Yoruba people, seized Yoruba land from its people, sold more than 10 million Yoruba into slavery in North and South America, as well as in the Caribbean, and stole the wealth and resources in Yoruba land through atrocities against them. This act of heredity ended when Obafemi Awolowo, a Yoruba citizen, assumed the political leadership of as the leader of government business and minister of local government, and the first premier of the Western region under Nigeria parliamentary system from 1951. 213. It was therefore irresponsible of the British government to have condemned the Nazi party in Germany under the Hitler for attempting to conquer and rule over England during the Second World War, and for the Holocaust against the Jewish people, because while the Germans paid reparation to the Jewish people for its atrocity against them over the Holocaust that lasted for only 5 years, the English contrast refused to pay reparation to the Yoruba for its atrocities against them over the extermination and enslavement of the Yoruba people that lasted for 100 years. 214. Moreover, the English, at the time of its departure from Nigeria in 1960, having forced together the Yoruba, Igbo and Hausa and other nations to create the Federation of Nigeria, further imposed on the Yoruba in Nigeria the control of the presidency of the country by the Fulani immigrants and their Igbo allies, who together ruled Nigeria from 1960 until 2023, when Bola Tinubu, a Yoruba citizen, assumed the control of the presidency of Nigeria for the first time in the history of the country. 215. Whilst we cannot romanticize the past, nor are we going to re-investigate it, we must always be conscious of the past, because the past is not something to be forgotten. On this premise, and as the leader of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF, my political activism on social media was therefore motivated by the suppression and subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria by the British government through its process in Nigeria, the Igbo and the Fulani immigrants, who collectively, 1. On January 15, 1966, suspended the regional parliamentary system of government in Nigeria and foisted on the Yoruba the unitary presidential system of government. 2. Nigerialized all the Yoruba economic assets, including the mineral and natural resources, money and capital markets, stock exchange, taxation, mainstream media, schools and curriculum, courts, waterways, seaports, airports, land borders, commercial tradings, real estate, pharmaceutical industry, public service, probation and prison services, and the legitimate use of the monopoly of violence, such as the military, police, civil defense and security services in the Yoruba land in the 60s. 3. On September 12, 1963, wrongly convicted Obafemi Awolowo, the first Prime Minister of Yoruba land, on false charges of treason and sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment. 4. On January 15, 1966, assassinated Ladoke Akintola, the second Prime Minister of Yoruba land. 5. On July 29, 1966, assassinated Adekunle Fajuyi, the first military Prime Minister of Yoruba land. 6. Annulled the June 12, 1993 presidential election result in Nigeria, won by Moshood Abiola, a Yoruba citizen. 7. On June 22, 1994, arrested and imprisoned Moshood Abiola, the first Yoruba to have won a presidential election in Nigeria. 8. On June 4, 1966, assassinated Kudirat Abiola, the wife of Moshood Abiola. 9. On July 7, 1998, assassinated Moshood Abiola, the first Yoruba president-elect of Nigeria. 10. On October 8, 2020, arranged systematically the EndSARS protest in Lagos, Yoruba land, targeted at the assassination of Bola Tinubu, a Yoruba citizen, in the run-up to the 2023 presidential election in Nigeria. 2:16. When Yoruba Young for Freedom (YYF) realized the British government complicity in the political situation in Nigeria, we started criticizing the English establishment on social media and openly campaigned for the nationalization of the British business interests in Yoruba land come Nigeria. We also called for the severance of trade and military ties with England and for the Yoruba nation to build super special relationship with the United States of America, the State of Israel, the Federative Republic of Brazil, the Portuguese Republic, the Federal Republic of Germany, the Republic of France, and Scandinavian countries as allies for them to support Yoruba to defy Nigeria in the absence of a return to the regional parliamentary system of government as enshrined in Nigeria's first constitution in 1960, which was suspended by the Igbo and Fulani in 1966. 2:17. The above and many more were what I had spoken out on social media against the British government and its process, the Igbo and the Fulani immigrants in Nigeria, that led to my criminalization as a terrorist by the English domestic and external intelligence agencies, the MI5 and MI6 respectively. 3. Events following my arrest. 3:1. Following my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offenses on August 6, 2019, Taylor Rose Solicitors was instructed to act on my behalf as a solicitor in the case. I was thereafter granted a police bail pending further investigation. However, the solicitor acted in a shockingly dishonest way when they acted as my solicitor in the case. For instance, 1. Following my release from the police station, after being granted bail, I mentioned to Taylor Rose Solicitors that I was in a long-time relationship with my ex-wife, with whom I lived with for 13 years and had 2 children from the marriage. But after discovering that she had been unfaithful in 2012, I filed for a divorce. I informed the solicitor that from 2015 there were several problems in the relationship centered around disagreement over the children and their schooling, leading to her making 5 vexatious allegations against me to the police at the Wycombe and Cardiff respectively between July 2015 and January 2017, which centered around harassment, malicious text message, breach of court order, child abduction and child neglect. All of these allegations were either dismissed by the police or quashed by the court, taking a toll on my mental health and causing me to experience PTSD, depression and anxiety problems between 2017 and 2019, which coincided with the time she reported my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offences. I specifically instructed Taylor Rose solicitors to contact my GP and the other organizations that I provided them who could assist in my case about my mental health difficulties, but they failed to act to my instructions. This raises questions about the completeness of the evidence presented during the trial. 2. On February 10, 2020, which was 6 months following my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offences without being charged with any offence, I instructed the Taylor Rose solicitors to file a lawsuit to the court for the matter to be dismissed of the Metropolitan Police Service to charge me to court within the stipulated 6-month period. They can hold or charge someone to court under the Terrorism Act 2000 and 2006 of the United Kingdom, but they failed to do so. 3. Again, on March 4, 2020, following the repeated failures of Taylor Rose solicitors to act on my instructions, I appointed a new solicitor, Jane's solicitor, to help with my case. At this time, I haven't been charged with any offences as the matter was still pending charge at the police station. But despite my request with a written letter of authority asking for the transfer of my case to the new solicitor, Taylor Rose solicitor refused to release my case file to Jane's solicitors. Unknown to me at the time, Taylor Rose solicitors were discreetly working for the Metropolitan Police to get me convicted, and the reason they had refused to transfer my case file to Jane's solicitors. 3.2. On May 20, 2020, the Counter-Terrorism Police in London decided that as I have no affiliation to any proscribed organizations, and because the Young Yoruba for Freedom is not a proscribed organization, they had no interest in me and therefore dismissed the allegation of terrorism against me. However, the English Metropolitan Police Service in London noted that the focus of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF was political, anti-Igbo and anti-Fulani immigrants in Nigeria, and concerned about our focal and active opposition to the English establishment's suppression and subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria, charged me with 6 counts offences of publishing and distributing materials on social media platforms between July 2017 and August 2019, 4 YouTube videos and 2 Facebook posts as threatening, abusive, insulting, and intended to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria, contrary to Section 21(1) and Section 19(1) of the Public Order Act 1986 of the United Kingdom. Of the offences were listed as follows. Count 1. This is related to a YouTube video titled YYF First Public Course of Action. The video referred to the YYF street protest code named which involved shutting down the Lagos International Airport, the Lagos Stock Exchange, the Apapa Wharf, and the Tinkan Port Complex, in the absence of return to the regional system of government in Nigeria and control of the presidency of Nigeria by only the Yoruba being the economy of Nigeria. The video also referred to the use of chemical or biological weapons to defend Yoruba land in times of Ogun and as deterrent to any future attacks on Yoruba land. Count 2. This is related to a YouTube video titled Currency for the Yoruba Liberation. The video referred to the Oodua coin that the YYF created to help start the economic growth and development in Yoruba land. The video also referred to the letter that I had written to and received from Her Majesty, the Queen of England, complaining about the British government's complicity in the political situation in Nigeria. Count 3. This is related to a YouTube video titled The Last Chance. The video was a campaign in favor of a return to the regional parliamentary system of government in Nigeria as a means of avoiding another civil war in the country. Count 4. This is related to a YouTube video titled Ikolu on Yoruba in Yoruba land. The video was a reaction to the assault on Demola, a Yoruba citizen who was spying by the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, over the allegation that he had stolen a ballot box during February 2019 in Nigeria. Count 5. This is related to a post on a Facebook page, Adeyinka grandson. The Facebook page was being managed by the Media and Publicity Department of the YYF. This particular post was about the atrocities of the Igbo and Fulani in Yoruba land. The post was made by the administrators of the Facebook page who are based in Yoruba land. Count 6. This is related to a further post on the Facebook page, Adeyinka grandson. This post was a response to a tweet by Mr. Donald Trump, the US president. The post was made by the administrators of the Facebook page who are based in Yoruba land. 3-4. On June 18, 2020, Taylor Road solicitors appointed Miss Laurie Ann Power, a Jamaican working with 25 Bedford Road Chambers in London, to act on my behalf as the barrister in the case. I objected to the appointment because of my preference for an English barrister, given my previous 5 cases, for which I was represented by English barristers who had won all cases for me. In addition, I described to Taylor Road solicitors the negative experience that I had with a barrister of Jamaican descent. I insisted that I would prefer for an English barrister to represent me in the case, but Taylor Road solicitors ignored my objections to the appointment of Miss Power against the LAA contract that entitled me to choose my barrister. Unknown to me at the time, Miss Power was appointed as my barrister, but discreetly working for the Crown Prosecution Service (CPS) to get me convicted. This was why Taylor Road solicitor ignored my objection to her appointment. 3-5. On July 1, 2020, I was brought before Judge Taylor, an English lady who was also the honorary recorder of the Southwark Crown Court. She reserved my case to only herself. I did not allow any other judges to preside over the matter from the early stage of the proceedings to the end of the case. At the time, I didn't know that Taylor Road's solicitor and Miss Power were in collusion with Judge Taylor, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the Metropolitan Police Service to maliciously prosecute me. 3-6. On October 23, 2020, the Metropolitan Police Service in London arrested me over a video that I posted on social media during the EndSARS protest in Lagos, Yoruba land. The video was titled 48 Hours Ultimatum given to the Igbo immigrants in Yoruba land to leave over their buying of people and the destruction of private and public buildings in Lagos during the EndSARS protest. I was brought before a judge at the Bromley Magistrates Court in London on the allegation that the video breached my bail conditions. However, the judge ruled that the video was not in breach of my bail conditions and I was thereafter released from police custody. 3-7. However, on January 25, 2021, the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case, having tampered with the one video which they edited into 2 videos titled Igbo in Yoruba land get 48 hours to relocate and YYF changing the course of history, added these 2 videos as count 7 and 8 offenses. This criminal actions of the police was allowed by Judge Taylor, which undermined the fairness of the case. 4. Preparation for trial. 4-1. In my defense statement, I denied that my YouTube videos and Facebook posts threatening, abused, insulted, and intended to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria, or that racial hatred was likely to stir up as consequence of the video and post. 4-2. I requested from the Metropolitan Police Service the following state witness to give evidence. 1. My ex-wife, who had reported my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offenses. 2. The Igbo and Fulani people were the alleged victims of my political activism on social media. 3. The senior investigating officers who investigated me for terrorism and racial hatred offenses before my arrest. 4. The detective constables who interviewed me under caution after my arrest. 5. The detective who interrogated my 2 phones and laptops. 4-3. In addition, I requested materials not yet disclosed to the defense, which might reasonably be considered as capable of undermining the case for the prosecution or of assisting the case of the defense, including 1. The letter I had written to and received from Her Majesty the Queen of England and seized from my home by the Metropolitan Police. 2. The letters I had written to and received from Mr. Donald Trump, the US President, and seized from my home by the Metropolitan Police. 3. The letters I had written to and received from Senator Rich, the Chairman of the US Senate on Foreign Relations, and seized from my home by the Metropolitan Police. 4. The letters I had written to and received from the head of the CIA and seized from my home by the Metropolitan Police. 5. The statement of my ex-wife made to the police in March 2019 when she reported my political activism on social media as terrorism and racial hatred offenses. 6. The copies of the 520 videos on my YouTube channel that I published between 2007 and 2019 but deactivated by the Metropolitan Police Service without any court order following my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offenses. 7. The copies of 520 political speeches I made between 2007 and 2019 but seized from my home by the Metropolitan Police. 8. The release report of the investigations about me that were provided to the Metropolitan Police Services by the US government /CIA and the UK government /MI5. 4. Further to the above disclosures requested from the Metropolitan Police Service, I prepared the following 4 arguments to tell the jury at trial. 1. To tell the jury about the motives of my ex-wife for reporting my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offenses. 2. To play to the jury 3 videos and show them 2 documents that I had prepared in my defense, including A. The video footage of the body-worn cameras of my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offenses by the Metropolitan Police in London on August 2019. B. The video footage of Demola, a Yoruba citizen, being paying by the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, over the allegations of stolen ballot balls during the presidential election on February 2019 in Nigeria. C. The video footage of the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, paying people and destroying private and public buildings during the EndSARS protest in October 2020. D. The copy of the political asylum documents granted by the British government to members of the IPOB, a terrorist group in Nigeria. E. The copy of my interview with the Punch newspaper in Lagos, Yoruba land on August 13, 2017. 3. To show the jury the ethnic map of Nigeria and explain to them what is responsible for the state of war in Nigeria. 4. To call the 21 witnesses in my case who have seen my videos and posts on social media and were willing to give evidence in court that I wasn't threatening, abusing, insulting, or intending to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria, but highlighting the suppression and subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria by the Igbo and Fulani. 4.5. Having prepared the 4th argument to say to the jury, in addition to the disclosure requested from the Metropolitan Police Service, Ms. Power wanted me to do a documentary about my political activism and trial with Channel 4 television in London. She asked that I give my consent for the documentary, which allowed the production crew to record my conferences with her. 4.6. I was recorded with Ms. Power 3 times by the production crew during my conferences with her while we discussed the involvement of my ex-wife in the case, the videos to be played to the jury at trial, the documents to be included in the trials bundle, the use of the ethnic map of Nigeria to explain to the jury what is responsible for the state of war in Nigeria and what each of the 21 witnesses in my case had written in their statement. One of the 21 witnesses in my case was Nelson Adeola, who was also a member of the YYF Advisory Council, but unknown to me, he had been recruited by Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case as a spy within the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF shortly after I had given his name to Miss Power as one of the witnesses in my case. For it, Nelson, as an undercover agent with the YYF, spied on me, my family, and members of the YYF on behalf of the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case. He gathered intelligence on the YYF's public course of action and collected personal information of the YYF's leaders for possible assassinations. 4-9. At the time of Nelson's involvement in the YYF, we did not suspect him as a spy. He, however, had nothing incriminating to report back to the Metropolitan Police of our group beyond the personal information of the YYF from our public views regarding the political situation in Nigeria in support of a return to the regional parliamentary system of government for the country and or in favor of the Yoruba Kingdom. 4-10 on November 12, 2021, which was 3 days before the commencement of my trial, the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case invited me to their office to watch some of my YouTube videos, not yet disclosed to the defense, but which to show to the jury at trial. I did not agree to the arrangement, but instructed Taylor Road solicitors to get the videos from the police and email them to me to watch. The Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case described the videos as sensitive and refused to send them to me, following which I instructed Miss Power to object to the inclusion of these videos as part of the trial. 5. Perversion of justice. 5-1. My trial started on November 15, 2021 and ended on November 30, 2021. 5-2. On November 15, 2021, which was the first day of my trial, all the disclosures requested from the Metropolitan Police before the start of my trial were not disclosed to the defense. Judge Taylor and Ms. Power ignored my concerns about the failure of the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of this case to provide these important witnesses and documents. 5-3. On the same day, Nelson Adeola was asked by Ms. Power to persuade me not to mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case. I mentioned to him that if I did not tell the jury about the involvement of my ex-wife in the case, the jury would not understand the background of the case and that I might lose the case. He used abusive and rude language towards me because I refused to take his advice or that of Ms. Power. 5-4. The prosecution counsel and Ms. Power considered the involvement of my ex-wife in the case as capable of undermining the case for the Crown Prosecution Service. They met with Judge Taylor in her chamber and requested her to rule that I cannot mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case. This was after they had used Nelson to try to stop me from mentioning the involvement of my ex-wife in the case to the jury. But third, 5-5, on November 19, 2021, which was the second day of my trial, sequel to a 3-day adjournment, Judge Taylor ruled that I could not mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case. I was thereafter threatened by Ms. Power with imprisonment, among other consequences. If I were to mention to the jury that it was my ex-wife who had reported my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offenses because of the custody matter of our children, following Judge Taylor's prejudicial ruling, which was a violation of my right to present a defense, I did not mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case. This severely affected the fairness of the trial. 5-6. Also, during the trial proceedings, Judge Taylor allowed new videos and articles described by the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of the case as sensitive, which were never disclosed to me before the trial, to form part of the evidence to be heard by the jury. This unfairness in presenting evidence denied me the right to a fair trial. 5.7. Moreover, Judge Taylor ruled that my 21 witnesses in the case were too many for a Crown Court trial and reduced them to 5 witnesses. I later found out that the statement was false and inaccurate because proceedings in the Crown Court permitted up to 50 witnesses in the case. The ruling by the judge was therefore prejudicial and a violation of my right to a fair trial. The ruling deprived me of the opportunity to present a complete defense. 5.8. On November 24, 2021, Judge Taylor ruled that I could not play to the jury the 3 videos that I have prepared in my defense, including the video footage of the cameras of my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offenses by the Metropolitan Police. In the video, I explained my political activism on social media and the political situation in Nigeria to the MI6 agents and the counter-terrorism police officers who arrested me. The explanation in the video footage was relevant to my trial. The video therefore had probative to my case, but Judge Taylor ruled that I could not play the video to the jury because it was capable of being prejudicial to the Metropolitan Police, whose officers were heavily armed when they arrested me. The judge's order violated my right to present a full defense. 2. The video footage of Demola, a Yoruba citizen, who was being paying by the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, over the allegation of stealing a ballot box during the presidential election of February 2019 in Nigeria. Judge Taylor ruled that I could not play this video to the jury because it was considered gruesome. But when I requested for the body of Demola to be blurred and for the video footage to be played to the jury, the judge and Ms. Power refused. I was therefore unable to give an account of the video to the jury about the impact it had on me when I responded to the whipping of Demola in the court for video attacks on Yoruba in Yoruba land against the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, who had paying Demola. The Metropolitan Police alleged that my response to the whipping of Demola by the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land was intended to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo, but Judge Taylor refused me the right to show to the jury the video of the Igbo by Demola. The judge prejudicial order tainted the jury perception and denied me the right to a fair trial. 3. During proceedings, the prosecution counsel argued that the video footage of the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, buying people and destroying private and public buildings on the instruction of Nnamdi Kanu during the EndSARS protest in October 2020 cannot be played to the jury. They alleged that the Metropolitan Police was not provided with a copy of the video. This was, however, a false statement because the video was provided to the police 6 months before the commencement of my trial. The misleading information by the prosecution counsel influenced Judge Taylor's decision not to allow the video footage to be played to the jury at trial. Judge Taylor's order that I cannot play the video to the jury prejudiced the jury against me, as I was unable to show to the jury the atrocities of the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, Yoruba land, during the EndSARS protest and the impact it had on me when I issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the Igbo immigrants in Yoruba land to leave. The prosecution then alleged that my response to the whipping of the Yoruba people and the destruction of private and public buildings by the Igbo immigrants in Lagos, where they listed as count 7 and 8 offenses, was intended to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo immigrants in Yoruba land. But Judge Taylor, who was expected to be neutral, sided with the Crown Prosecution Service and refused me to write to show the jury the video of the Igbos paying of people in Lagos during the EndSARS protest. The judge prejudicial order tainted the jury's perception and denied me the right to a fair trial. 5.9. Ms. Power failed to include the trial bundle, the 3 documents that I prepared in my defense and provided to her. She also failed to disclose this crucial evidence to the jury during the cross-examination specifically. 1. The copy of the political asylum documents granted by the British government to member of the IPOB, a terrorist group in Nigeria. 2. The copy of my interview with the Punch newspaper in Lagos, Yorubaland on August 13, 2017. 3. The copy of the ethnic map of Nigeria with the 15 nations that were forged together by the English to create the Federation of Nigeria, which I had wanted to use to explain to the jury what is responsible for the state of war in Nigeria. 5.10. Judge Taylor allowed the trial to continue despite the inconsistencies in the trial transcripts, wherein the contents of my videos were not transcribed properly, and the Metropolitan Police Services did not disclose the documents and witnesses required by the defense, which highlighted the potential error or omission in the trial and the reason why I did not agree to the agreed facts of the case before the trial started. But Judge Chance on this error or omission, after I had mentioned them to her during my cross-examination, led to an inaccurate assessment of the evidence in the case, inadequate investigation, and withholding of evidence, which denied me a fair trial. 5.11. On November 26, 2021, following the conclusion of my cross-examination, Ms. Power and Nelson Adeola, having succeeded in threatening me not to mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case, began to discuss it. They stated that my cross-examination was fantastic and there was no need for the witnesses to give their testimonies, 2 of whom were present in the court. One was on her way to the court and the other 2 were at their various homes in America and Germany respectively, ready to provide their testimonies via the video link. I went to get one of the witnesses present in the court and asked Ms. Power to go and cross-examine him, but she refused and prevented the witnesses from testifying in the case. All kinds of things were going through my mind. I was concerned that Ms. Power had been compromised and wanted me to be convicted, but I did not suspect that Nelson was involved in the whole arrangement as an undercover agent of the Metropolitan Police within the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF. The ineffective legal representation of Ms. Power during the trial denied me a fair trial. 5.12. On November 30, 2021, Judge Taylor made a statement expressing skepticism about Nigeria's state of war, following the jury's question on whether Nigeria was in a state of war when I made my videos and posts on social media platforms between 2007 and 2019. The judge's skepticism was prejudicial and a violation of my right to a fair trial. There was no doubt that Nigeria was in a state of war when I made the videos and posts on social media. But the skepticism expressed by the Judge Taylor about Nigeria's state of war without any expert opinions on the matter, following which she directed the jury not to consider the state of war in Nigeria in their deliberation, prejudiced the case against me. Moreover, the failure of Ms. Power to correct Judge Taylor's assumption regarding Nigeria's state of war contributed to the misunderstandings and misinterpretations of the matter. This failure to address the judge's skepticism was indicative of diligence in ensuring the accuracy of the trial record, because in my defense statement I clearly stated that Nigeria is in the state of war, and the rationale for my political activism on and off the social media, particularly given the Boko Haram's insurgency group in the Kanuri region of Nigeria, the Fulani's militia terrorism in the Hausa region of Nigeria, the ongoing war between the Fulani herdsmen and Indian farmers in the Middle Belt region of Nigeria, the IPOB's war with the security services in the Igbo region of Nigeria, the militancy in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, the agitation for the Yoruba kingdom in the Yoruba region of Nigeria, the failure of George Taylor to acknowledge the state of war in Nigeria influenced the jury's perception and prejudiced the case against me. 513. Following my wrongful conviction, I found out that the recordings of my conferences with Miss Power, allegedly by the production crew of Channel 4 television, under the guise of doing a documentary about my political activism and trial, was shared with the Crown Prosecution Service and the Metropolitan Police Service before my trial for them to know the strength and weakness in my defense and to use them against me at trial. This was why the Crown Prosecution Service did not produce in the court the Igbo and Fulani people who are the alleged victims of my political activism on social media. The victims impart statements or the disclosure of documents requested by the defense from the Metropolitan Police Service in London, and I was not permitted by Judge Taylor to use my witnesses. The document that I had available or to mention to the jury the involvement and motive of my ex-wife for reporting my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and racial hatred offenses over the court. For the above reason, my trial was unfair, which made my conviction unsafe and malicious, and therefore asking for permission to appeal against the wrongful conviction to the Court of Appeal. 6. Conduct of my associates. 6.1. In August 2020, Dimeji Babatunde was of the YYF Board of Directors. He replaced the former Vice President of the Young Yoruba for Freedom. Shortly afterwards, Nelson about the YYF Advisory Council. Before these two appointments, I had never had any with both of these individuals. They only joined the YYF a year after I had already been arrested for terrorism and racial hatred offenses. 6.2. But in any organization, people can be used. While Dimeji was disloyal, corrupt, and undermined the YYF as vice president following my wrongful conviction and imprisonment, Nelson acted as an undercover agent for the Metropolitan Police Service in London within the YYF before, during, and after my wrongful conviction. 6.3. In January 2021, Nelson provided his details as one of the 21 witnesses in my case. I believed that shortly after I had given out his name to Miss Power as one of my witnesses, he had recruited as a spy within the YYF by the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case. The 6.4. The MI5, MI6, Counter-Terrorism Police and the Metropolitan Police Service in London were concerned about the YYF campaigns for the use of Kemi and Bao Web to defend Yoruba land in times of war and as a deterrent to any future Ikolu on Yoruba land. They needed someone within the Yoruba YYF to provide them with activities of the YYF and found Nelson as a willing tool, whose son was already an agent of the MI5. It discreetly collected personal information of the YYF's leaders and their family members. He wanted information on TETU, the YYF subsidiary group responsible for external intelligence gathering on the English establishment and the political leadership of the Igbo and Fulani, whom we have described as the eternal enemies of the Yoruba nation. He was curious to know about the DIA, another subsidiary of the YYFs responsible for envisioning chemical and biological Nkanja to defend Yoruba land in times of war. He desperately wanted information about the involvement of Asiwaju Tinubu, now President Tinubu, in the funding for YYF public cause of action, which we denied at the time. We were never suspicious of him as an undercover agent of the Metropolitan Police within the YYF. 6.5. As mentioned, Nelson, in connivance with Miss Power, undermined my triad. He affected the outcome of the case, for which I was wrongly convicted and remanded in prison for sentencing. 6.6. On November 30, 2021, from the prison, I directed the Vice President of the YYF, Dimeji Babatunde, to raise money from the YYF patrons to appeal to organized protest at the British Embassy in Lagos, Yorubaland, to demand my release from prison. 6.7. In December 2021, Nelson held a meeting with 3 members of the YYF Board of Directors, including Dimeji Babatunde, YYF Vice President, Femi Odulaja, YYF Spokesperson, Adedayo Adeshida, YYF Coordinator for England, and a member of YYF Advisory Council, Ms. Ulua. He told them not to support my appeal process and prevailed on them not to organize any protest at the British Embassy in Lagos, Yorubaland, to demand my release from prison. He further threatened those in England with possible police arrest if they were to remain. He encouraged them to leave the group. He alleged that I assaulted my ex-wife and that a neighbor had reported me to the police for terrorism offenses, among other things. 6.8. Nelson's allegations were fundamentally untrue. He made them deliberately to attack my good reputation. I did not assault my ex-wife in our 13-year relationship, and a neighbor did not report me to the police for terrorism offenses. On the contrary, the issue of me taking my ex-wife to the Special Educational Needs Tribunal and the family court for custody of our children, when I found out that she had registered our son as a disabled child and claimed disability living allowance and careers allowance on him and carer's allowance on him without any discussion with me, when our son's only problem was speech delay and he was not in fact disabled, was the circumstances surrounding the malicious allegations of terrorism and racial hatred offenses against me by my ex-wife, which led to my arrest on August 6, 2019. 6.9. Because of my arrest for terrorism and racial hatred offenses, the family court ordered that I could run because I was under police investigation for terrorism offenses. Consequently, the Home Office refused to renew my resident permit after it expired. But following the dismissal of the allegations of terrorism against me, I appealed the Home Office's decision to the Immigration Tribunal. The Home Office's decision because I haven't had direct contact to my children as a result of the pending trial for my racially aggravated public order offenses. 6.10. Following my wrongful conviction of racially aggravated public order offenses against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria in London, Ms. Power provided Nelson Adeola the link to my Immigration Tribunal judgment online, from where he circulated the link to members of Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF to discredit me that I have no resident permit in the United Kingdom. 6.11. I believed that the allegations of Nelson about me, shortly after I had been wrongly convicted and imprisoned, were orchestrated by the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case to defame my good reputation to members of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF, to misinform them and to create a feeling of fear in them so that there will be no coordinated actions from them regarding my wrongful convictions. This became apparent when Dimeji Babatunde allied with Nelson Adeola and sabotaged the planned protest against the British Embassy in Lagos, Yorubaland, to demand my release from prison, undermined my appeal process, defamed my good reputation to the YYF patrons, sacked the YYF Director of Finance and appointed Femi Odulaja, his man Friday, to take charge of all the finances of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF 612. Furthermore, Dimeji Babatunde held a meeting of the YYF Board of Directors, limited to only himself, Femi Odulaja and Adeyinka. Out of the 11 members of the Board of Directors, at this meeting, he specifically directed the 3 members present to take and use the money belonging to the YYF for their. These 3 members of the YYF Board of Directors were the first to compromise the group following my wrongful conviction 613 in January 2022, under the guise of helping to get a solicitor to appeal against my wrongful conviction to the Court of Appeal. Nexon collected the sum of £11,000 from the YYF Board of Directors as payment to Mary Monson solicitors, but shortly after the payment had been made, the solicitor did not make any application to the Court of Appeal for permission to appeal against the wrongful conviction. They promised to lodge the appeal after my sentencing hearing. 614. On March 31, 2022, I attended the court for the sentencing hearing and was represented by Mary Monson solicitors. I was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months imprisonment on the false charges of stirring up racial hatred against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria. Following the sentencing hearing, Mary Monson solicitor requested a further payment of £30,000 before they could lodge the appeal. This was not part of the initial agreement with the solicitor. The YYF Board of Directors did not pay the additional fees, and the solicitor did not lodge the appeal. Nexon was asked to get a refund of the $11,000 paid to the solicitor. He refused to do so and instead resigned his membership of the YYF Advisory Council and threatened the life of a member of the YY Board of Directors. 615. As a remedy, Mary Monson solicitor confirmed that Nexon only paid them the sum of £8,000 and offered to waive the balance of £3,000. While they suggested that I collected the balance from Nexon Adeola, I was hugely disappointed at Nexon's betrayals and breach of trust. I made a complaint about Mary Monson solicitors to the regulatory authority to ask for a refund of the money paid to them, but the complaint is still awaiting to be allocated to an investigator. 616. While Nexon and Dimeji worked with us, accepted our kindness, our admiration, and our trust, and took up position of responsibility in the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF, they undermined the lives, liberty, and physical safety of my family, members of the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF, and myself. 7. Conspiracy to commit mass pipayin in Lagos, Yoruba land. Imprisonment of the offences of publishing and distributing materials on social media platforms, namely 4 YouTube videos and 2 Facebook posts, as threatening, abusive, insulting, or intending to stir up racial hatred against the Igbo and Yoruba people of Nigeria, and appealing the wrongful conviction of a litigant in person, while the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case to keep me in prison indefinitely conspired with Nexon Adeola to commit mass pipayin in Lagos, Yoruba land, and blamed the criminal act on me. June 7-2. In January 2022, Nexon, having compromised Dimeji Babatunde, Director of Intelligence, to carry out the mass pipayin with a promise to fund the pipayin, both of them had hoped that the YYF Director of Intelligence would have taken the money to carry out the criminal act, and Nexon would then Yoruba land and the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case, who would have alerted the Yoruba Police Service in Lagos to monitor the activities of the YYF Director of Intelligence, and have him arrested on or before the act. The police in Lagos would then blame the criminal act on the Young Yoruba for Freedom YYF Metropolitan Police Service in London to arrest me in prison and charge me with directing a terrorist organization, as the leader of the Young Yoruba for Freedom (YYF) 7-3. But following nursing directives to Dimeji, who had earlier refused to support my appeal process, sabotaged the plans of the YYF to stage a series of protests against the British government at the British Embassy in Lagos, Yorubaland, to demand my release from prison, defamed my good reputation to the YYF patrons and donors, and misappropriated the money of the YYF for his personal aggrandizement, all within a month of my imprisonment. Suddenly called a meeting of the YYF Board of Directors, limited to only 5 people, including himself in Texas, USA, Femi Odulaja in Leicester, England, Adedayo Adeshida in London, England, YYF Director of Intelligence in Lagos, Yorubaland, and Michael in Dublin, Ireland, who is a non-member of the YYF Board of Directors. He left out the 7 other members of the YYF Board of Directors. 7-4. At the meeting, he instructed the YYF Director of Intelligence to carry out the mass pipayin in Lagos, Yorubaland, with specific the Yorubaland venue, time, date, and nǹkan èròjà for the pipayin. However, the YYF Director of Intelligence refused to carry out the criminal act or take the money offered to him because it was against the aims and objectives of the Young Yoruba for Freedom (YYF). The YYF Directors of Intelligence accused the Major of being unscrupulous and asked him to resign as the Vice President of Young Yoruba for Freedom (YYF). 7-5. In February 2022, just 2 months after my wrongful conviction and imprisonment, the Major resigned as the Vice President of the YYF. The YYF Director of Intelligence, the plans of the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case to commit mass pipayin in Lagos, Yorubaland, with the connivance of Nelson Adeola and Dimeji Babatunde. 7-6. In January 2023, I was debriefed about the criminal conduct of Dimeji while he acted as the Vice President of the YYF and asked the Director General of the YYF to report him to the FBI in America for his role in the conspiracy to commit mass pipayin in Lagos, Yorubaland. But the Director General did not act on my instructions. He made excuses to forgive Dimeji. This insubordination, among other inactions, influenced my decision to dissolve the YYF Board of Directors in 2023. 7-7. However, on July 7, 2023, I made an official complaint to the Independent Official for Police Conduct (IOPC) in England about the Metropolitan Police officers in charge of my case and Nelson Adeola for spying on me, my family, and members of the Young Yoruba for Freedom, and for conspiracy to commit mass pipayin in Lagos, Yorubaland. The Metropolitan Police Directorate of Professional Standard Unit has not concluded its investigation since then. 7-8. In addition, I requested the Security Committee of Nigeria's National Assembly to investigate my complaint about the Metropolitan Police Service in London of conspiring with 2 former members of the Young Yoruba for Freedom (YYF) to commit mass pipayin in Yorubaland. I have had no response from the Nigerian National Assembly or the Nigeria High Commission in London since 2023. 8. Appeal to Court of Appeal. 8-1. Following my wrongful conviction, I complained about Ms. Power's collusion with the prosecution. In her response, she disclosed 2 endorsements she alleged I signed with her that I would not mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case or call any of the 21 witnesses in my case to give their testimonies. An endorsement were forgeries. I did not sign them. 8-2. Giving Ms. Power forgeries. I made an application to the Southwark Crown Court for a retrial of my case on the grounds of forgeries and ineffective representation. The application was brought to the attention of Judge Taylor, She refused the application and stated that the Southwark Crown Court does not have the authority to grant any retrial. 8.3. On April 22, 2022, I addressed my concern to the Court of Appeal in a notice of application for permission to appeal against conviction and listed a 15 ground of appeal about Judge Taylor's decisions at trial that were wrong, the incompetent representation of Ms. Power as a barrister in the case, and the complaints that I have against Taylor Rose Solicitor. 8.4. While awaiting the decision of the Court of Appeal, I was further charged with a new offense of malicious communications by the Metropolitan Police. The offenses related to my letters to my ex-wife and the content of my video about her uploaded to social media by 6 Facebook users on her motives for reporting my political activism on social media to the police as terrorism and social hatred offenses. The letters and videos were investigated by the South Wales Police in Cardiff in 2019, who took no further action on the matter. The matter was also ventilated by the Cardiff Civil and Family Court in February 2020. As an end to the matter, however, the Metropolitan, with no jurisdiction over this matter, stated in a court document that the police protocol Yoruba land edited Yoruba Kingdom permitted them the re-evaluation of the matter. Hence, their decision to charge me to court with an offense that had already been Yoruba landed and dismissed by another police force and a competent court of law. The Metropolitan Police action is political persecution, and they are doing it because of my political views that were critical of the British government's complicity in the political situation in Nigeria. The new charges are pending trial before the Southwark Crown Court in London. I hope to see the Yoruba Police Service in Lagos discriminate against the English in Lagos, in the same way the English Metropolitan Police in London have always discriminated against the Yoruba in London. 8.5. However, in a bid for justice, I was in court on November 16, 2023 to challenge the wrongful conviction, but the judges refused to grant me permission to appeal against my conviction to the Court of Appeal. They based their decision on Mass Power's endorsement, allegedly signed by me, that I will not mention to the jury the involvement of my ex-wife in the case or call any of the 21 witnesses in my case to give their testimonies. The endorsement are forgeries. I have therefore asked the Criminal Cases Review Commission (CCRC) to review my case, given the new information that has come to light, and for the case to be referred back to court for the judges to change their decision and grant me the permission to take the matter to the Court of Appeal. The CCRC is currently reviewing my case. 9. Political persecution. 9.1. The MI5 and MI6 are concerned about my vocal and active opposition to the British government's complicity in the suppression and subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria through their process, the Fulani and Igbo in Nigeria, and wish to harm me and my children in England. In 2017, they threatened my life and those of my children. In 2019, they falsely accused me of terrorism and racial hatred offenses. In 2021, they colluded with Judge Taylor of the Southwark Crown Court, the Crown Prosecution Service, the Metropolitan Police Service, and my lawyers, Taylor Rose Solicitors, and Miss Laurie Ann Power of 25 Bedford Row Chambers in London, and maliciously persecuted me, wrongly convicted me, and sentenced me to 4 years and 6 months imprisonment on the false charges of stirring up racial hatred on social media against the Igbo and Fulani people of Nigeria, and while in prison, infected me with coronavirus and poisoned my food to paying me. The intervention of the government of the Federation of Nigeria in my case is therefore imperative to bring my children and me back home to Yoruba land. media of being the process of the English establishment in the suppression of the subjugation of the Yoruba in Nigeria. 9.2. There is, therefore, a significant risk to the lives, liberty, and physical safety of my children and me in England from MI5 and MI6 because of my political beliefs. The intervention of the government of the Federation of Nigeria in my case is therefore imperative to bring my children and me back home to Yoruba land from England to protect us from the MI5 and MI6 who wish to harm us. That is statement and publication or write-up from our brother Adeyinka grandson, titled "My Unfair Imprisonment is Stain on the English Judiciary." Àánú Olódùmarè ò ní fẹ́ nìkọ̀ọ̀kan wá sílẹ̀ o. Wàhálà àti ìdààmú ò ní kàn wá. Ẹni tí yóò kàn wá Ọlọ́run níjọ́ kàn wọ́n. Bí ó ṣe gba tèmi lẹ̀ dáì ṣe sìkà ni ò ṣe yẹ káìdá ó ṣìkà. Lónìí Adeyinka grandson lọ́kàn. Kò sẹ́ni tó mẹni tí ó kàn lọ́la. Látàrí èyí bá wa gbìyànjú láti share ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kó lè dé ọ̀dọ̀ àwọn aláṣẹ ìjọba lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà, pàápàá jùlọ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, pàápàá jùlọ ààrẹ orílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu, àkànbí ọmọ olódòdẹ, because Adeyinka grandson òmìnira Yorùbá ló dúró fún. Lẹ́yìn ẹ̀ ló jẹ́ alátìlẹ́yìn àkọ́kọ́ fún ààrẹ Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu. Adeyinka ó sọ oríṣiríṣi ìdí tá a fi gbọ́dọ̀ fààyè gba Yorùbá president kí election tó kí Bọ́lá Tinubu tó fìfẹ́ hàn rárá pé òun fẹ́ díje fóṣèlú. With this man has done a lot for the emancipation, ṣé mo correct? Or the candidacy of our dear president Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu. Adeyinka grandson ní ìdí ìrànlọ́wọ́ yín báyìí. Safety àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ padà lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà ó jẹ́ pàtàkì. Ìrànlọ́wọ́ tá a fẹ́ lọ́dọ̀ yín nu. Gbogbo ẹ̀yin aṣòfin tẹ́ wá láti ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Adeyinka grandson is our child, is our brother. Ó ti la oríṣiríṣi nǹkan kọjá lórí nǹkan méjì kan lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà ni. So yóò wù mí tẹ́ bá gbọ́rọ̀ wa yẹ̀ wò, yóò wù mí tẹ́ bá wà nǹkan ṣe sí ọ̀rọ̀ Adeyinka grandson. Àánú Olódùmarè ò ní fẹ́ nìkọ̀ọ̀kan wá sílẹ̀. Well, àkàndá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́nu bíi tejò. Ilé mi yá mi mọ̀ ń lọ náà nù o. Mo ti wí tẹ́lẹ̀ pé ọ̀rọ̀ òun pọ̀, ṣùgbọ́n tí n ò bá ṣe inú mi ò ní dùn, ẹ̀rí ọkàn sì ní jẹ́ kí n gbádùn, torí pé mo mọ Adeyinka grandson dáadáa, mo dẹ̀ mọ ipa tó kó lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá àti lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu. So tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá ṣe àì nítorí tèmi, ẹ ṣe àì nítorí Adeyinka grandson, ẹ ṣe àì nítorí pé ó ti bọ́ sí yàn jẹ. Mi mọ̀ bóyá white níyàwó ẹ̀ o, bóyá èèyàn dúdú níyàwó ẹ̀ o, but ìyàwó ẹ̀ ti fẹ́ yàn jẹ, ìyàwó ẹ̀ ti yàn jẹ, ìyàwó ẹ̀ wà lára àwọn tó fìyà jẹ, ṣùgbọ́n lọ́n lọ́lẹ̀ san ibẹ̀ yẹn kọ́ là ń lọ. Ibi tá à ń lọ ni pé ẹ̀mí Adeyinka grandson wà nínú ewu, ara ẹ̀ ò yá gan-an, ó lóun tọ́jú ara òun lọ́wọ́, so kọ́lọ́n bá fún ní àlàáfíà ara tó péye. This guy is an asset to Yoruba land. Yes. Dídáhùn sí ọ̀rọ̀ Adeyinka grandson ó máa fún àwa tó kù ní encouragement pé okay, Yorùbá ṣe é jà fún, because a nítorí kílù ọmọ bá tú káwá máwọn ọmọ kéékèèké àtàláboyún bẹ̀ ká fi wọ́n ṣètùtù bí lu ọba tún ni yọ yàtọ̀ o ìbànújẹ́ ńlá ni kí màjèsí ó tójú ìyá ìrọ̀rùn kò dáa káwọn ògo wẹrẹ tó ń dìde láti dìde fún ìjàngbara lẹ Yorùbá kí wọ́n máa rí ìdojúkọ káwọn ààrẹ tí yóò dìde sí wọn ó kù díẹ̀ káàtó èmi náà jẹ́ kan bẹ̀ mo jẹ́ kan nù testimony but Adeyinka grandson ó ní ìdí wa ó nílò ìrànlọ́wọ́ wa so especially the government of Nigeria and the southwest political elite, our governors, our senators, our House of Rep members, our state assemblies, àtẹ̀yìn àgbààgbà ẹ̀yìn ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n tẹ̀ nífọ̀n tẹ́lẹ̀ kan náà Adeyinka grandson gbogbo yín lẹ mọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ ìwọ̀nba àwọn tó mọ̀ pé ọkùnrin làgbẹ̀ ọkùnrin làdá ẹni tó mú dání ọkùnrin ni àkàndá alóró lẹ́nu bíi tejò mọ̀ ń dágbére tí kú kọ́tàrùnkọ́ àtúnláǹfààní àti tún pàdé ẹ like ẹ follow page mi lórí Facebook Awikonko TV àti Awikonko TV live ẹ subscribe sí YouTube channel mi Awikonko TV àti Awikonko TV live àti channel tẹ wà yìí ẹ subscribe sí èdè àti àṣà Yorùbá ò ní parun orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ò ní dàrú ìlú ẹnìkọ̀ọ̀kan wa yóò tòrò mìnìmìnì àjùwàṣe o.